The next section of the final is on factoring. First question, number 15 on the final, asks me to factor the expression. What it's really asking here is for me to pull out the greatest common factor. So in this case, we have 40 and we have 45. We're looking for the biggest number that goes into both. 5 goes into both 40 and 45, so that's the biggest number that I'm going to be able to pull out. I look for the smallest power of each variable. Here I have x cubed, here I have x squared. The smaller is x squared. Here I have y, here I have y squared. The smaller is y. So the biggest thing that I can pull out of each of these is 5x squared y. So what I'm really doing is I'm taking 40x cubed y, dividing it by 5x squared y, and then I'm taking negative 45x squared y squared and dividing it by 5x squared y. When I divide 40 by 5, I get 8. X cubed divided by x squared leaves me with x, and the y's go away. Here, when I do negative 45 divided by 5, I get negative 9. The x squareds go away, and y squared divided by y leaves me with y. So this is left over after the division. What did we divide by? 5x squared y, which goes out in front of the parentheses. If I wanted to check my work, I could check that multiplying 5x squared y by 8x would get me back to this term, and multiplying 5x squared y by negative 9y would get me back to this term. For number 16, it asks me to factor the trinomial. Here it's got a equals 1, so I can start just by making my parentheses. I'm going to put in x and x, bring down the positive. Different from positive is negative. I'm looking for two things that multiply to 18 and subtract to 3. The ways to get to 18 are 1, 18, 2, 9, and 3, 6. The one that subtracts to 3 is 3, 6. So I put the larger one here, the smaller one here. Number 17 is slightly more difficult because here a does not equal 1. So this is a case where I'm going to have to use my cross method and then factor by grouping. Cross method tells me in my cross I'm going to put at the top first 5 times last negative 3. So negative 15 is going to go in the top. I'm going to bring down the middle number, negative 14. This says that there's two things that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 14. In order to multiply to a negative number, I need to have one negative and one positive. In this case, the negative is going to be bigger so that when we add them, we get to this negative 14. The ways to multiply to 15 are 1, 15, 3, 5. If I do 5 minus 3, I get to 2, not 14. If I do 15 minus 1, I do get to 14. That's why this works out to negative 15 and 1. Negative 15 times 1 gives me negative 15. Negative 15 plus 1 gives me negative 14. So this really tells me how to break up this middle term so that factor by grouping will work. It's going to become 5x squared minus 15x plus x minus 3. For my first pair in factor by grouping, I can take out a 5x. It leaves behind x minus 3. I already have an x minus 3 in my second pair. So really, I just want to leave that as is. That's like dividing by 1 or pulling out a 1. I then translate it into outsides and insides. Outsides, 5x plus 1 times repeated inside, x minus 3 and x minus 3. So my final factored form is 5x plus 1 times x minus 3. Number 18 is real quick if you remember the rule. This is a difference of squares. X squared minus 49. Here, x squared is x times itself. Here, 49 is 7 times 7. So this just factors. The square root of the first term, square root of x squared is x. Put that in first position. Have one positive, one negative. Square root of the second term is 7. So x plus 7, x minus 7. Remember, it only works if both of these are squares and there's a minus sign in between them. would not be able to do difference of squares if it had a plus sign.